My name's Noah. I'm 28, live in Seattle, and until recently, I thought I had finally carved out a life far away from the drama I grew up with. I work in software design, have a quiet apartment with a great view of the water, and I've been lucky enough to be financially comfortable. Comfortable enough that for the past 4 years, I've been quietly paying for both of my younger siblings' college tuition. My brother Luke is 21 and studying engineering. My sister Ava is 19, a sophomore in nursing. My parents couldn't afford it, at least, that's what they always said. But I made a deal with myself. I'd help them because I knew what it was like to struggle, and I believed they'd do the same for me if the roles were reversed. That belief was my first mistake. I hadn't even told my siblings I was covering their tuition. They just thought it was coming from family savings, which is a joke considering my mom once pawned my Xbox for rent money and forgot to tell me. But I didn't care about the recognition. I did it because I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to have what I didn't. Now, I should say this. My relationship with my mom has always been complicated. She's the kind of person who believes in tough love, which really means she's cold, critical, and only affectionate when it serves her. My dad mostly stays quiet, a shadow in every room, nodding along to whatever she says like he's trying to avoid setting her off. Growing up, I learned fast that love in our house had conditions, grades, obedience, praise, but only if it was directed toward Ava or Luke. With me, it was different. I was the test child, the one they had too young and too broke, the one they made all their mistakes on. Still, I kept trying. Last month, I flew home for Luke's birthday. I brought a gift, a new set of wireless headphones he'd been hinting at for weeks, and paid for dinner at this overpriced steakhouse my mom insisted on. I didn't mind. But halfway through the night, Ava started talking about wanting to switch majors again. That would be the third time. And just like clockwork, my mom turned to me and said, "You're going to keep helping her, right? You can't just let her waste a year of her life." No, please. No, thank you. Just expectation, entitlement, like I was the family ATM. I tried to laugh it off. I mean, she should probably talk to an advisor first. That was all it took. My mom's expression shifted. That tight, forced smile, gone. "Wow," she said, loud enough for the entire table to hear. "You really are full of yourself now, huh? Just because you make a little money doesn't mean you get to talk down to us." I froze. Luke and Ava just stared at their plates. My dad kept sipping his water like nothing had happened. I didn't argue. I just paid the bill, wished Luke a happy birthday again, and left early. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to a group text from my mom. It was sent to me, Ava, and Luke. It read, "Don't bother showing up if you can't act grateful. Noah, this is still a family. And just because you got lucky doesn't mean you get to treat the rest of us like we're beneath you. Maybe take a break from pretending to be better than everyone. We're tired of it." I just stared at my phone. I reread the message 3 times. I felt that tight, bitter squeeze in my chest, the same one I used to get as a teenager, standing outside my own front door because I forgot to do a chore and my mom locked me out as a lesson. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't ask her to take it back. Instead, I closed the message, opened my laptop, logged into the financial aid portals for both of my siblings' schools, and canceled the tuition auto payments. I didn't rage. I didn't write some dramatic message. I just stopped. The same way they always stopped showing up for me. The silence was immediate. 2 days passed. No one said anything. Not even a follow-up from Ava or Luke. Then came the voicemails. Luke's first. "Bro, did you forget to send the payment? Financial aid says it didn't go through. Can you check?" Then Ava. "Hey. They said my balance is overdue and there's a hold on my registration. I'm really stressed. Can you please fix it?" Still, I didn't respond. Then came the texts. Then came the calls. Then the angry voicemails, especially from my mom. "Noah, this is ridiculous. You're punishing your own siblings because you can't take a little criticism? Grow up. Don't be petty. You think you're teaching us a lesson? You're just being selfish." By the 5th day, I had 37 missed calls and a family group chat filled with accusations, guilt trips, and desperate pleas to talk. I didn't reply to any of them, because by that point, I was already gone, literally. I had booked a last-minute trip to Maui. I was sitting on the beach that evening, cold drink in hand, my phone face down in the sand next to me, while the sun dipped low over the water like a glowing ember in the sky. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not happiness exactly, but something close. Something like relief. Still, a part of me kept wondering, how far would they go? Would they show up at my door? Would they try to manipulate me into coming back, into fixing everything again? Or would they finally realize what they'd lost? Because I wasn't their ATM anymore. I was done being the family's silent sponsor. But I had a plan, one that would take everything I'd quietly sacrificed for them and flip it on its head. And the best part? They'd never see it coming. The thing about walking away from your family, especially a family like mine, is that it doesn't happen all at once. Not really. You tell yourself you're done, but the memories keep tapping on your shoulder, whispering guilt into your ear. So while I was sitting there in Maui, watching the waves lap at the shore, I kept checking my phone. Not to reply, just to look. To see what guilt would try to pull me back in. Luke left me a long voicemail that night. Noah, I know Mom's being a fool, but Ava and I didn't ask her to say that stuff. You know we're grateful. We didn't know you were the one paying. She said it was Grandpa's trust fund or something. Please don't do this, man. I almost felt something crack in my chest. Almost. But then I thought about all the times I had done something. Bought Ava a new laptop after hers broke sophomore year. Helped Luke when his car broke down. Covered their books, housing, flights home. Not once did anyone say thanks. Not once did they question where the money came from. They just assumed it was their right. I played Luke's message again. Slower this time. That part. We didn't know you were the one paying. Yeah, that was exactly the problem. After a few days, the tone of the messages started changing. The concern turned to anger. Ava sent me a long, paragraph-heavy text that basically boiled down to, "This is selfish and manipulative, and you're ruining our futures just to prove a point." My mom followed up with a classic move. She looped an extended family. I got a message from Aunt Denise, whom I hadn't heard from in 2 years, saying, "We're all really disappointed in how you're handling this, Noah." Right. Because suddenly I owed my cousin's opinions an explanation for not sponsoring my siblings' lives anymore. It was around that point I started screenshotting things. The texts, the guilt trips. Though we didn't ask you to S and the "you think you're better than us" S. I created a folder called Receipts on my desktop. It wasn't about revenge, at least, not yet. It was about clarity. I wanted to remember how it felt, in case I ever weakened again. And then came the tipping point. My mom called me at work. She never does that. She doesn't even know what I actually do for a living. But she must have gotten my work number from some old email signature or contact list. I was in a meeting when I saw the number pop up. Declined it. Then came the voicemail. "Don't you dare think you're better than this family. Everything we did for you growing up, and this is how you repay us? Pulling the rug out from under your brother and sister when they need you the most? I swear, Noah, if you don't fix this, you're not welcome at Thanksgiving. Or ever again." The rage in her voice didn't even mask the manipulation anymore. And that's when the decision cemented itself in me. Not just about the tuition. About everything. I wasn't going back. Not for Thanksgiving. Not for Christmas. Not for birthdays, weddings, baby showers, funerals. I was done pretending I owed them my life because they didn't completely abandon me. I got back to Seattle a few days later. Back to my quiet apartment, my city skyline, my French press mornings and clutter-free living room. There was a single envelope waiting for me in the mailroom when I returned. It was from my dad. It just said, "Please call your mother. She's not sleeping." No signature. No warmth. Just a task. And it hit me then, more than ever, how thoroughly I had been trained to fix things. To absorb discomfort so they could keep coasting. To feel responsible for everyone's happiness, except my own. That night, I opened the folder labeled Receipts again. And something changed. I wasn't just collecting evidence anymore. I started writing. I wrote out a letter. No, a statement. Not to them, but for me. A full list of everything I had paid for over the last 4 years. Dates, amounts, reasons. A timeline of every request, every time I said yes when I wanted to say no. I wrote about the guilt, the manipulation, the quiet silences that followed every favor, the lack of gratitude, the expectation. And I ended it with a single sentence. You didn't lose your son because he stopped paying. You lost him because you never noticed when he started. I printed a few copies. Sealed them in envelopes. One for Mom. One for Dad. One each for Ava and Luke. And one I kept in my desk drawer. I mailed them all out on a Tuesday. And then, I waited. 2 days passed. Then 3. No response. I checked my phone more than I want to admit. Half of me expected screaming voicemails again. The other half dreaded silence. But the one message I did get wasn't from any of them. It was from Ava. A single line. "We need to talk." I stared at it for a long time, fingers hovering over the screen, hard in my throat. Because depending on what she said next, that was going to decide what kind of brother I'd be going forward. I didn't reply right away. Ava's message, "We need to talk," sat unread in my notifications for almost an hour. Not because I didn't want to know what she had to say, but because I already knew the weight of that message. It wasn't casual. It wasn't, "Hey, can we chat?" It was a crack forming in the wall they'd spent years building, between obligation and affection, between me and them. I walked circles around my apartment, phone in hand. I thought about the version of me that would have answered in a heartbeat, the version that bent over backward just to avoid tension. The one who bought Ava concert tickets when she failed her organic chemistry midterm and cried all week. The one who drove 2 hours to pick up Luke from a party when he lost his wallet and didn't want mom to find out. The one who never asked for anything in return. That version of me would have called her immediately, but I was someone different now, or at least trying to be. Still, something in me cracked. Curiosity? Guilt? I don't know. But eventually, I sat on the couch, took a breath, and typed back. "What do you want to talk about?" 3 dots. Then nothing. I waited. Then they came back. "Can I call you?" I paused, then hit accept. She answered almost instantly. "Noah," she said, and her voice was already shaking. "Yeah, I'm here." There was a long silence on her end. I could hear faint sounds, maybe a dorm hallway, maybe her pacing like I had been. "I didn't know it was you," she said finally. "I swear to God, I didn't know you were paying for everything." "I believe you," I said, and I meant it. At least, part of me did. "But you never asked." Her breath caught a little, like she hadn't expected that. "I guess I didn't," she said. "I thought. Mom said Grandpa left money in a trust. She said it was handled. I didn't want to be a burden." I didn't reply. "You don't believe me," she added quietly. "I believe that's what you told yourself. But it's easier to believe the money just came from nowhere than to ask where it actually came from. And that's the problem." Another silence. Then, "I didn't come here to defend them. I came to say I'm sorry." That stopped me. "I'm sorry for never asking. For assuming. For letting mom talk to you like that. I didn't think it mattered as long as everything was working. I never thought about what it cost you to keep everything running. That's on me." And for the first time since this entire mess started, I felt something real. Not peace. Not forgiveness. But maybe the beginning of something. I let the quiet linger a moment longer. "I appreciate that," I said slowly. "I do. I didn't text to beg for money," she added. "I talked to the financial aid office. I'm getting a loan. I'll figure it out. I needed you to know that I see it now. I see you now." I closed my eyes. Let the words soak in. Let the truth of them settle somewhere deep inside me that had been aching for years. "Thank you," I said again. And this time, I meant it more. We talked for a little while longer. About classes. About her roommates. About the mess Luke was in. His financial aid office hadn't been nearly as helpful, and he was panicking, apparently calling every family member who might have a dime. But I didn't offer to fix it. And Ava didn't ask. Before we hung up, she said something that stuck with me. "Noah, if I'd known it was you paying, I would have acted different." I almost said, "That's the whole point," but I didn't. Instead, I told her, "People shouldn't have to know who's paying to treat them with respect." She was quiet. "Yeah," she said. "I get that now." We ended the call on an okay note. Not warm. Not perfect. But honest. And I thought, maybe, that was enough. But that same night, right before bed, I got another message. Not from Ava. From my mom. A screenshot of a past tuition invoice with a text underneath. "So this is what you're holding over us now? Money? Funny how you never acted like this when you needed us." And that, right there, was the moment I knew. This wasn't over. Because I still had something they wanted. And they still had no idea just how much I had kept from them. Not just about money. Not just about boundaries. But about the other thing I had set in motion while I was in Maui. The part of the story no one knew yet. The part that would change everything. I read the message from my mom in complete silence. No anger, no surprise. Just that familiar, cold numbness. The kind you develop after years of being blamed for breathing the wrong way. Her text wasn't new. It was a rerun of the same old script, just dressed in a different font. Accusation. Deflection. A subtle twist of the knife she always kept on standby. But what made it different this time was me. Because while I'd been in Maui, sipping pina coladas and ignoring 37 missed calls. I hadn't just been licking my wounds. I'd been planning. The thing is, when you spend years doing everything for people who never say thank you, you learn to start keeping records. Digital breadcrumbs, bank transfers, emails, statements. I had them all. Every tuition payment, every book expense, every laptop, rent deposit, and even that time Luke lost his student ID 3 times in one semester and needed an emergency $500. And when I stopped paying, when the truth came out and they started screaming, I realized they still thought they had power, that they could guilt me, shame me, gaslight me back into submission. But they forgot one thing. I had proof, and I had leverage. See, after I got back from Maui and saw how quickly Ava reached out, not to demand, but to understand, I started to think maybe, just maybe, she was worth salvaging. But the rest of them? No. So I made a decision. One I'd been putting off for years. I called my lawyer. Her name's Veronica. Sharp as a knife and twice as efficient. I first met her when I was negotiating my contract at the tech firm I work for, and I remember thinking, God help the fool who ever tries to mess with her clients. Now, that fool was my own mother. Veronica, I said, I need to talk about creating a formal trust. Something airtight. Something that guarantees not $1 of my estate ever goes to my parents. There was a pause. You expecting to die anytime soon? No, I said, smiling. Just planning ahead. Over the next 2 weeks, we put everything into motion. A new trust, updated will, power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive, the whole 9 yards. I legally removed my parents as emergency contacts. Gave that right to a friend I trusted. Removed them from my life on paper, not just in principle. But I didn't stop there. I also reached out to both Ava and Luke's schools. I explained, politely, professionally, that I had been covering their tuition under a private agreement, which I was no longer obligated to uphold. I didn't give details, just dates, account numbers, and confirmation that all future payments would be ceased. Luke's school confirmed that his financial aid status was now under review due to unpaid tuition. Ava, to her credit, had already secured a student loan. She followed through like she said she would. Then came the final move. I drafted a long email, not to my parents, but to everyone in the family group chat. The one my mom had used to humiliate me. The one where my aunts, uncles, cousins, and people I hadn't seen since high school felt perfectly comfortable chiming in with opinions about my selfishness. Subject line, clarification. And I wrote, Hi everyone. I hope this message finds you well. I've received a number of texts, voicemails, and emails from several of you over the past few weeks, and I wanted to clear the air about a few things. Over the last 4 years, I have personally and privately paid over $180,000 toward Luke and Ava's college tuition, housing, books, and related expenses. I did this quietly, without announcing it or expecting anything in return. It was never Grandpa's trust or family savings that paid for their education. It was me. I did it because I love my siblings. I believed in them. I wanted them to succeed in ways I had to fight for on my own. However, when I began setting boundaries and was met with hostility, insults, and group messages questioning my character, I made a decision to stop financing a family dynamic built on entitlement and silence. This is not a cry for attention, nor is it revenge. It's simply the end of a chapter. I will no longer be involved in family financial matters, gatherings, or group communications. If you feel compelled to judge me, that's your right. But I'm no longer accepting the role you've assigned me in this story. To those who understand, thank you. To those who don't, I wish you peace. Noah. I hit send and logged out. 10 minutes later, my cousin Jess texted me privately. She told me she had no idea I was the one paying, that she thought I was just being dramatic. She apologized for piling on. She even offered to meet up next time I was in town. But most of the group chat stayed silent. My mom, however, she responded the next morning. An essay, a novel of guilt. Lines like, You don't understand how hard it was raising 3 kids. After all we sacrificed for you. Your siblings are innocent in all this, and now they have to suffer because of you. And the kicker, if you walk away from us now, you'll regret it when we're gone. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new email thread. To Ava. Subject, Your future. Hey, I meant what I said about not paying for anyone else anymore. But if you ever genuinely need help, not handouts, not hush money, help, like guidance or connections or someone to talk to while you navigate school, I'm here. You're the only one who acted like an adult through all of this. I'm proud of you for that. Stay strong. Finish school. Make your own path. Noah. She replied a few hours later. Thank you. I'm working on it. And thank you for giving me the chance to do it on my own now. 3 weeks passed. No contact from my mom. No voicemails from Luke, though I heard through Jess that he took a semester off to figure things out. No more guilt trips. Just silence. I expected to feel empty. Instead, I felt like I could breathe again. I started hiking again. I finally finished that graphic novel I'd been drawing panels for since college. I began saving up for a trip to Iceland, something I'd always dreamed about, but never let myself do because I was too busy funding other people's dreams. And the biggest change? I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. Cutting ties wasn't a dramatic act of revenge. It was slow, painful healing. It was realizing that family isn't defined by DNA or guilt or who shows up when you succeed. It's defined by who respects you when you fail. I didn't burn the bridge. I just finally stopped patching it up alone and let it collapse into the river where it belonged. When the holidays rolled around, I spent Thanksgiving in a cabin with a few close friends. We cooked. We laughed. We played board games until 2 a.m. No drama. No insults. No one asking for money. Just peace. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt something I hadn't known I was allowed to feel. Free.